Super Rugby round 6 is almost upon us. We've got one less game this round just because it's 3 teams on the bye. So Friday games, we've got the Crusaders and the Bulls, and then the Rebels and the Sharks. So we've got Kiwi, South African and Aussie teams all in the mix. So it's making for a pretty interesting Friday. So for the first game, the Crusaders and the Bulls, who would have thought I'd be saying it's 2 teams on losing runs? Crusaders have dropped for 2 games in a row for the first time in a very long time. The Bulls, 3 in a row now, 1 at home and then 2 on the road. So yeah, it's definitely a clash of 2 teams that need a change in fortunes. The Crusaders haven't lost at home yet, so that's kind of going for them. In the 2 games they did lose recently, both away to quite strong New Zealand opposition. So I don't think we can read too much into the fact that they lost 2 games. They've had a lot of guys out away from home, strong teams. So for them to lose is really not a biggie. I think it's only a matter of time before their season gets back on track. And in all likelihood, it probably starts this weekend or this Friday. For the Bulls, their tour's kind of going as expected. They might have been looking to realistically win 1 on the road, but if it is going to be that 1 on the road, this one is the hardest of the lot in all likelihood. They have showed patches of form in the game against the Chiefs. I mean, they were doing well at half-time, but you can't not score in the second half and expect to get a result. So yeah, they're going to need to show 80 minutes of hard running football to get anywhere near the Crusaders this weekend. For the Crusaders, I should say, by the way, the New Zealand media are talking up the Bulls a lot. They're saying this ain't the Bulls of old. This is a running of the Bulls, I guess. But basically the entertaining team to watch, if nothing else. So the New Zealand media are definitely giving them props to what they're doing in the Bulls camp. Crusaders have got Crotty and Whitelock back for this week. Tim Perry's also back, so Crockett moves to the bench. However, it's kind of give and take with the Crusaders at the moment. So Matt Todd is out. I think he's got a bruised rib from last week. So Harmon starts, although he's no slouch. And Tamani Valu, they said that he just kind of tightened up in one of his legs, so they're not risking him. I guess they've got the Lions on the horizon, so it's probably one of those games that, you know, if this was a quarter-final, he probably plays, but you know, they've still got a long season to go, so they're not going to risk him. So Mata Ali starts in his place. Again, strong player. For the Bulls, so I think Creel's playing in his 50th game, so that's pretty cool for a guy who's still pretty young. And 7-star Tim Agaba, who I don't know a heck of a lot about, other than he's probably pretty quick if he's a sevens man. Starts at number 8, so I'm going to be watching him with interest. Papia gets his first start, which is good because I think Warner's injured. Jenkins starts with Sneyman out, so a few changes for both sides. Kind of makes sense just with guys, you know, battered bodies not being ready for the game on a Friday. The Crusaders definitely need to bounce back at home. Crotty and Whitelock will make a big difference. They've got to be confident of getting a bonus point win here, realistically. I mean, just based on where they finished last season compared to where the Bulls finished, it should be night and day, but the Bulls have definitely shown that they're not the team from last year. So, and with the amount of guys the Crusaders have got out, they're not quite their team from last year either. So there's been a slight coming together, but whether it's enough for the Bulls to kind of get one over, you know, remains to be seen. But if you are going to get one over the Crusaders at home, now's as good a time as any, because, you know, once Dag gets back and Kieran Reid and Franks and Moody, like all these other guys to come back, they're gonna be kind of Fortress Crusaders in Christchurch again. So yeah, as a bin goes past my house, they still have a slight chance. I think for the Bulls, there it goes. If they can get a bonus point this time, just take it. Honestly, no one's gonna. Well, I'm not going to judge you if you kick the ball out in your own end goal at 80 minutes and you're still within 7. Like, Yeah, man, take a bonus point against the Crusaders. I was pretty gutted the way they lost it against the Chiefs last week because they deserved one. Oh, and also I should say, aside from the Crusaders having injuries, they have one less day rest than the Bulls. So the Bulls played on a Friday last week, whereas the Crusaders played on a Saturday. So they've just had that extra kind of turnaround time to get ready and get sore bodies kind of back in shape. So it's all there for the Bulls. But like I said, any team going into Christchurch, you know, you're never going to be the favourite, are you? So the bookies have got the Crusaders by a whopping 19 points. So they're saying there's not much hope for the Bulls. Like I said, they played well one half against the Chiefs. They just need to do it for two, and they could be in with a shot. But we will see. It's not been as predictable quite as last year this season in Super Rugby, so we'll see how they go. In the next game, the Rebels play the Sharks in Melbourne. So the Rebels really fell back to earth last week after flying so high with the kind of early run. And they will want to consolidate their position in the Aussie Conference because the Reds were able to catch them up a bit last week by beating the Jaguares. So yeah, the Rebels definitely want to cement #1 spot and hopefully for them keep it throughout the whole season. For the Sharks, man, they just need to show what they've got after a pretty disappointing start to the season. You know, one win and it's only over the Sunwolves. It's not what they were planning at the start of the season, I am sure. So the Rebels have made a lot of changes, and that's because I would say, I was talking about the turnaround with these two guys. The Rebels are only on 4 days because they played a Sunday game last week against the Waratahs, and now they're up on a Friday. So it's kind of really bad scheduling for them. So I think it was 7 changes, but the ones I've noted down, Korobidi and Naivalu start on the wings for the first time this season together. Maddox moves to fullback. Hodge moves to 13 instead of 12. Meeks comes into 12. Colby Fainga's getting a start. Angus Cottrell's getting a start. Parling gets a start in the second row. So like Tom English is on the bench. Ross Halett-Petty's on the bench. Matt Phillips on the bench. So some tired bodies from last week. It's only been 4 days of rest. So just kind of rotate the bench guys and, you know, swap a few guys around. It makes absolute sense. You know, 4 days is not ideal turnaround time for rugby. You know, it's not like some sports where you can play 2 days in a row or even 2 games in a week is tough. It's kind of one of those things that in the Rugby World Cups, the countries who qualify bottom usually get a pretty rough schedule, and they usually get 2 games in quick succession. So that's what the Rebels have got this time. Coach is managing it as best he can, but it'll be a challenge. For the Sharks, a few changes. So Nkosi and Volvo are on the wings. So Van Veek and Mpimpi are out or on the bench. I can't actually remember. Lozen for Esterhazen, and the Beast is back in the front row. So that's a good thing because their scrum was looking less than ideal last week. The Rebels, despite the short turnaround, really need to get a result. Like I said, the Aussie Conference has tightened up a bit, so they want to keep pushing ahead. 26 points is the most that the Sharks have conceded this season. I think that was in the first game against the Lions. So I don't know how likely a bonus point win is on the cards for the Rebels. Like they've had a couple of blowouts so far. You know, they've had 3 bonus point wins. But I think just targeting a win is probably more realistic for them this week. The Sharks, I mean, they've got a 2-game tour of New Zealand coming up after they finish with Australia. So no disrespect to the Aussie Conference, but man, like it's only going to get tougher. I mean, they do have the Blues, so maybe it's not tougher. The Blues may not necessarily be tougher. Rebels are right at the top of my power rankings, but the Blues are down the bottom. So it may be about to get easier, but in theory, a tour to New Zealand is tough. So yeah, they've got 2 games in New Zealand around the corner, so they'll definitely want to try and take advantage of the Rebels' short turnaround of their mixed squad. Some new guys in. Like Parling has never started for the Rebels, so the Sharks line-out's been pretty good this season, so that might be an area where they can get some pay. But man, the loss last week was so disappointing. So it's really hard to see where the Sharks are at. If they're going to show up this season, they need to start getting it done, because we're already, into the 6th week of. So it's already a quarter of the way through the season. So yeah, we'll see what happens. The bookies have got the Rebels winning by 7. So Sharks will definitely need to get a bonus point, if not a win out of this one. And like I said, Rebels need to win and aim for a bonus point, but it seems unlikely given the scorelines we've seen from the Sharks this season. So what do you guys reckon? The 2 home wins, what you guys will be picking in your Super Brew? I mean, if you're a betting man, you probably take the Crusaders and the Rebels, but Bulls, if they can do 80 minutes, and Sharks, if they can finally kind of get everything to gel together, potentially with an upset, we will see how we go. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to both these 2 games, and I'll talk to you guys again another time.